All right, so I guess we should get started. We're seeing a lot of people coming in. That's great. Thank you everyone for joining. This is a webinar we're going to do about building with Dropbox, and we are super excited to do this. It's a way for us to get you started, and also for us to learn how and how and why you're building with Dropbox. So who's this for? So just to set expectations, we are looking for people that have some coding experience because we're going to touch some coding concepts and programming languages and things like that. People that are interested in working with new APIs that they haven't worked yet, or are curious to learn about the Dropbox API and have some integration ideas of things you guys want to build with and integrate with Dropbox. Our goals for today is to, by the end of this presentation, that you have an understanding of what the tools or resources we make available for developers, know where to go to get started, have some ideas on what to build. We're going to talk about a few success stories to give you some inspiration, and know how to create an app with the appropriate settings and get started, know how to try the Dropbox API, and know where and how to reach out for help. This is a beginner webinar. We were talking about a beginner because it's for people that are starting with Dropbox, but the goal is to have subsequent events of advanced topics. So we're also looking for feedback on what you'd like to see next after this webinar. But these are our goals for today. So we're going to talk about the Dropbox platform, Dropbox not only as a product, but as a platform, the API that allows other applications to integrate with Dropbox. We're going to talk about some companies, partners, and customers that have been using the Dropbox API. Look at the tools available, the resources available. We're going to do a couple of demos as well, and how to create an app and configure permission scope so that your app is ready to connect to a Dropbox account. In the end, we have some time for questions and answers. So hopefully we'll have ample time for your particular needs. These are your presenters for today. I'm Marcel. I'm a developer evangelist here at Dropbox. And I've been with Dropbox for 3.5 years. And for the past year, I've been helping a lot of companies and developers, from like the individual developers all the way to large system integrators on how to create apps that connect to Dropbox. We also have Taylor live. Taylor is a developer evangelist here as well. He's going to be helping me in this webinar with looking at the chat for questions. So if you have any questions that pop up in your head while we're talking, just make sure you put it in the Q&A section in your Zoom chat, and we're going to field them as the best of our abilities. And also, Taylor is also a great it's the great responsible person for our blogs and our social media reach out. So if you see us on Twitter and our blogs and everything, just a shout out to Taylor for that. Let's talk about the Dropbox platform then. As you probably have used Dropbox before, right? We'd like to just position how it evolved. So it was a solution for you to keep your files in sync, just your personal files back in 2007. We started to be a very safe place for you to store your stuff and also have access to that whenever you need them. And we evolved to a solution that worked for teams. And now it's much more about collaboration, about creating things together, managing your projects, and thinking of working internally and externally in keeping these teams in sync. Therefore, the Dropbox product also evolved from a Dropbox Personal to Dropbox Business. And the API also evolved in the same way. The API started having endpoints for you to manipulate your files, And now it has also endpoints to manipulate teams and create groups and create team folders and all that good stuff we're going to talk about today. So Dropbox is for everyone. Like I said, there's the personal version of Dropbox and there's the business version of Dropbox. So I like to have a show of hands. Let's see if I can do this here on Zoom. Taylor, if you can do this, maybe it's better because I just made something bad here. So if we can put the poll online and see how many people have used Dropbox. Can we do that? All right, so this is actually, oh yeah, there's another question that we were gonna ask later. See if you can go, okay, so the question that is now going on is rate your level of comfort working with public APIs. So this is from beginner to advanced. And one is like you're just starting, and then if you're already a master and in using APIs, you're a 5. Let's give it another 10 seconds for people to. So it looks like everyone is converging to 1 and 4. Like either I'm starting now or I'm already pretty comfortable about it. So like half and half. I think it's good. Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Okay, so I wanted to get another feel of who has used Dropbox Business. I think we have a poll question for that, right? So let's see how many of you have used Dropbox Business before. So just a few more seconds. If you're listening, make sure you vote. Cool. So also half and half. Great. So the good news is that Dropbox API works for both, right? You can have a free Dropbox account and leverage the API. There's no charge for using the API. When you use for personal use, when you connect your apps to personal accounts, you usually trying to leverage the Dropbox capabilities for sync, for sharing, for transferring. And the 3 licenses available: basic, which is the free, the plus, and the professional. They go up in like capabilities you can have. And then business is usually when you have teams, you need to assign roles, assign permissions, and control how your content is being used by your organizations. And then you also have 3 licenses: the standard, advanced, and enterprise, that also range in grow up in how many capabilities you need. Right? Awesome. The Dropbox API, so looks like you have half of you have already experience with public APIs. So this might make sense to you then that we have an HTTP-based API. Our requests are made with post requests, meaning that you're going to use the body of the request quite a bit to send your parameters. And they are RPC style endpoints, right? They have like a individual type of behavior, just like pressing buttons on an arcade machine. Like you press a button, something happens. So that's how the Dropbox API works. Like you send a request and you get a response, like really simple. Have you used the Dropbox API before? We have a poll going on. Looks like most people have not, which is great. So we are going to be able to talk about that. And it looks like you're not in the 500,000 developers that have used it already, right? Great. So most people have not used it. We have over 50 billion API calls per month, and that's how the integrations happen. If you ever heard of an application that connects to Dropbox, that integrates with Dropbox, they use the API for that, and we're going to see how that happens. Thank you for the poll participation. We organize the endpoints according to that evolution of the product, so that you can find yourself like around the Dropbox API, which is very vast. There's so much you can do with the API, so many endpoints. That's why we like to show how they're organized. So you're going to find like a list of user endpoints and business endpoints. The user endpoints are usually to execute operations that a user would do with the UI, for example, copy a file, upload a file, download a file, these things. Now, business endpoints are more geared towards managing teams. So if you're adding a user to a team, if you're adding a user to a group, if you're creating a team folder and you're sharing with other people, so those endpoints are then part of the business endpoints list. Let's take a look at some interesting cases of leveraging the Dropbox API. One of them, Atlassian. If you are a developer, so you probably heard of them, and they have products that are really popular among development teams like Jira, Confluence, and Trello. They have a feature in Jira called Smart Links, and they use our embedder preview capabilities. And we're going to talk about the pre-built components in a second, but basically they are able to preview documents from Dropbox from within the Jira interface without having to leave their user experience. With BetterCloud, BetterCloud is a SaaS provider, SaaS management provider. You have like a central panel to control your SaaS applications. And if you are a modern company, you probably have several SaaS applications running. So they use our API to organize the information for the IT administrators. So they can, for example, execute actions from the BetterCloud console, like add a member to a group, create a group, and do things like that. And they can also receive notifications. And if something happens in your Dropbox account and you want to be notified and you want to do something about it, you can use BetterCloud for that. They use our API as well. OrderAI, super nice example of manipulating content in your Dropbox account. It works with any type of Dropbox account. You need to have an OrderAI account. But if you connect both, what happens is that if you have an audio file, you go to a conference and record some sort of a lecture, and you want to transcribe it to text. If your audio lives in Dropbox and you have it connected with OrderAI, Order goes, gets that audio from Dropbox, runs through their machine learning and speech-to-text technology, creates a text transcript of that file, and uploads it back to Dropbox. And we have a blog article about it. Super nice. We're going to send you the links later. HelloSign is a company that we eventually acquired, but they have been using the Dropbox API for a while. They are an electronic signature solution. And what they do with Dropbox, they use Chooser, which is also a pre-built component to allow users to choose files to be sent for signatures directly from the Dropbox account. So they don't need to download the file to their computers and then send it to HelloSign. The process happens seamlessly using a Chooser, which is a pre-built component for Dropbox. And after you get the signed files back from the people you send them to, you can also save them back to Dropbox with HelloSign. And those that we mentioned before are partners, like other companies that connect to Dropbox to give a better experience for their users. This particular example, Dow Jones is not a partner, is a customer. And they have a process to go through because of GDPR compliance. So they had to create a workflow that read files from Dropbox and saved files in Dropbox and had several steps in their workflow. They used our API to do that from an ASP.NET portal, an application. So it makes one process for whoever's going to go through this process, and they don't even need to look at Dropbox to see what's going on, like the application controls. everything. They use endpoints such as create a folder, upload a file, and create a shared link with settings, which is how to create a link and share with other people. Great, so those are the success stories. We're going to take a look at the developer tools available. And we have the developer portal, we have the pre-built components, we also have Dropbox Extensions, super cool feature for you to use, the SDKs that we provide, software development kits, and the Postman collections. The main point for you to get started with Dropbox is dropbox.com/developers. We're going to show you how to navigate that site, but it's whenever you have a question, whenever you have something to learn about the Dropbox API or see what it does and get support and everything, you start by going to dropbox.com/developers. And the one thing that you're going to find available, which is like the greatest, to me, is the easiest way to get started with the Dropbox API. That's why I tell all developers I talk to, hey, I'm looking to start building with Dropbox. What do I do first? This is how, to me, is the easiest way to do it. The pre-built components are JavaScript snippets that allow you to include Dropbox functionality in your web apps. And for example, the chooser that we talked about that HelloSign uses allows your app to, the user of your app to choose a file from Dropbox and upload it to your app. Let's say you are a job finding engine and you want your users to be able to upload their resumes from their Dropbox. You can use the chooser component with little to no code. All you have to do is drop the snippet there in your front end. Same thing, analogous, you have the saver component, which is the other way around. You are providing files to your user and you want to give them the ability to save directly to their Dropboxes, right? So you can use Saver to do that. And it's just another snippet. So the user will be able to link your app with Dropbox and save the files directly to their Dropbox. And the other one is called Embedder. And we're going to, and that's what Jira uses, for example. It allows you to preview either a document or a list of documents in a folder from within your web app, as if it were part of your web app. Super cool. The Dropbox extensions are another way for you to link your app functionality to Dropbox. So if your user likes Dropbox, if they are using the Dropbox UI, but they frequently need to get a document from Dropbox and have it processed by your app, you can create a Dropbox extension, such as open with. Let's say you have a particular type of file that you generate that you can work with. You can create an extension so that within Dropbox, your user can click on open with and select your app. The SDKs, and now let's see if we can do a little poll question. The SDK software development kits are the objects, the libraries you can use within your preferred programming language to interact with Dropbox. So what is your favorite programming language? Let's see what kind of developers we have out there. Great, so we're looking at a close race between Java, Python, and JavaScript. Not many C# people around. And some other is also interesting. Great. Cool, so very spread out, awesome. So we listed the ones that we feel that from our experience that we get the most requests from developers. But we're also looking to learn about other tools, other technologies you might use to integrate with Dropbox. We have a list of official SDKs, which are automatically generated from our API specs. So which means that whenever we launch a new endpoint, you're going to get automatic support from the SDK. And we have some unofficial SDKs, which are community-based created by the community, and they're also available, but they require external work to implement new objects and new endpoints. So why do we recommend the SDKs? Because they provide a lot of functionality already included for you, like things like they're authenticating your app and error handling. All these tools are much easier to do if you were, instead of just hitting the HTTP endpoints directly. So highly recommend looking at the SDKs. And recently we launched the Postman Collections. If you're not familiar with Postman, they are an API development platform, but they also are very good for you to test APIs. And they have something called the API network, which I'm going to demo in a bit. And you can find Dropbox there. Right now we have two collections published. One is the Dropbox API reference, which is a list of every endpoint that we have with the documentation, so you can try it out. And we also have one geared towards team admin workflows, which are workflows that require the use of a few endpoints chained together, so that your admin can execute bulk actions in their Dropbox account. Also really good for you to understand the API, but more geared towards people that are going to manage Dropbox teams. And more to come. We're working with Postman really closely to get more collections out there for teaching people how to use the API. Great. What else we have before we look at them? We have the guides, documentation, API Explorer, developer blog, and community and support. Let's take a look at each one of them. The guides are, if you're looking for documentation, it should be your starting point, because they don't just list how each endpoint work. Instead, they work towards actions, like things you might want to do with Dropbox. For example, I want to learn how to manipulate files, so there's a file access guide. I want to learn how to do authentication. There's an OAuth guide, authorization. Sorry. So they are organized towards things that usually our developers come to us for help. Hey, I'm looking to manage a team. Which endpoints do I use? So instead of having to go and search for yourself, you can go straight to the guide and get started. Documentation, of course, we have the guides to get you started, but we also have a very detailed documentation on how every endpoint works. Also the documentation for the SDK, the Prebuilt Components documentation as well. Like every endpoint, you're going to find the parameters that it takes, what each parameter needs, and what kind of value it accepts, what kind of returns you have, error handling, all that good stuff. The API Explorer, which I'm going to show you in a bit, is a way for you to test some of the endpoints without having to create an app around it. And you can, from the interface, you can get a token and then issue a call and see how it behaves. I'm going to show you that in a minute. We also like to brag about our developer blog. Not only it is beautiful, it has a lot of information. Actually, I'll take that a step up. Our tech blog is super great. It's awesome. It's where our developers, the developers blog is a part of a tech blog for Dropbox, which if you are a technical person and you want to learn how Dropbox does things, make sure you subscribe to that. Like Dropbox shares a lot of information on, for example, what kind of search engine, how do we revamp our search engine, how do we, what kind of disks we experimented with in our data centers, everything that we learned and everything that, and what kind of challenges we went through, we share that with the community. So very good read. If you're a techie person, make sure you look at the dropbox.tech website. And then, of course, if you need help, we have several channels for you to go to. The main ones, the developer forums that we maintain, API support and feedback, and you get there from the dropbox.com/developers. It's very responsive. Someone from Dropbox will take your answer. If you don't find the answer there, because there's so much stuff there already, someone from Dropbox will respond really quickly. We also monitor Stack Overflow for people that are used to be in Stack Overflow all day. If you tag your question with Dropbox-API, we're going to look at it pretty soon as well. And we also have our Twitter account where we announce things like these webinars and new things from the Dropbox API. You also want to subscribe to that Twitter handle as well, at Dropbox API. All right, let's take a look at these things that I showed you. But before that, Taylor, do we have any questions in the Q&A that we'd like to cover for now?
We don't have any in there right now, but if anyone has some questions before we jump into this demo, now's a good time for us to answer some of those as well. So we'll take a minute here.
Yeah, let me get ready for that then. Okay, I'm going to exit the full screen here. Great. So, yes.
I think we're good to go, Marcel.
Okay, great. So this is the website I was talking about, dropbox.com/developers. And like I said, I think the main place for you to start is the guides. If you want to get started, we have getting started with the Dropbox API. We have API deep dives, all the documents I described, like how to do X with Dropbox, you're going to find here. If you are more advanced in the Dropbox API, I recommend you take a look at our performance guide and our error handling, because this is when your app is already taking a lot of requests. You might want to look at those and see how best your app can perform. All right, we have some tutorials as well, really fun to follow and to learn. Right, then we have the documentation. Everything we described is documented here. So the pre-built components is the way to start with Dropbox. Choose a safe and better. Then we have the API reference. We're going to touch on that in a minute. And then we have the documentation for the official SDKs here. And you can download them from here as well. The HTTP reference that we described is a list of the endpoints with all their details here and how they are organized in user and business endpoints. I'm going to go back to the landing page for the documentation because I wanted to show you the API Explorer. So API Explorer is a way for you to test your calls, your API calls, without having to write an app about it. So some of them, can be done just by getting a token. Click here. And I forgot to say that I'm already logged in my Dropbox account. I'm going to show you this in a minute. This is my Dropbox account. Because I'm logged in, when I clicked Get Token, I already automatically requested a token for accessing my own Dropbox account. We're going to talk about tokens and permissions in a bit. And then if I submit this call, because I got the token, I can get a response. What is this endpoint doing? It is listing the contents of a folder. You're probably going to use this endpoint quite a bit, right? There are some parameters you can test here. That's why API Explorer is cool. You can test, for example, if you want to list recursive, all the contents traverse through the tree and go all the way through the file structure, or if you just want to list that particular folder where you pointed it to. Because I left the path empty, I'm looking at the root of my account. And this is where the response will show up. It is a JSON object with several arrays, entries for the folders and subfolders and files that are in there. And you're going to see the unique identifier for each file that then you can use to issue other calls, to get more info about the file, or to delete it, and to do all that good stuff. All the modern programming languages have easy ways to treat JSON objects. So it should be super easy for you to work with these responses. Great. So let's get going. Let's take a look at the rest of the agenda. We're going to look at creating an app now. And present. Well, creating an app requires register an app, and we're going to talk about this. And actually, there it is, app registration. So when we refer to creating an app, we also might use the word register an app. This is how you tell Dropbox that you have an app that is going to run with Dropbox and will require permissions to run with Dropbox accounts. At this point, Dropbox generates a unique ID, a unique identifier for your app in case your app has you need to verify how your app is connecting to Dropbox, so we need to know something about it. So everything is tied to this unique ID that is created when you create an app. When you register an app, you can choose to, if you're using Dropbox Personal as a developer, the app will be registered to your personal account. Now, if you are part of a team and you are the admin of a team, you can create an app that is linked to a team. And this will depend on how your company usually manages your apps, right? But bottom line is that an app will always be owned by a user, by a person that has a Dropbox account, right? This is the person. We also have the concept of development versus production status. What does that mean? When you create an app, it is limited in the amount of connections that it can receive because it's still under development. This is made to protect the Dropbox environment from apps that might be just doing stuff they shouldn't and just taking too many resources, right? Once you're comfortable with your app and you want it to be used by other people, you want it to be to have external users, you want to have other domains connecting to your app, then you need to submit it for production status. And then there's a form you need to fill out. I'm going to show you where to get there. And basically you ask Dropbox, hey, Dropbox, I have this app that needs broader access. It needs to be used by more people. I need you to review it. And then we have a team that's going to review it and ask you a few questions if necessary. But then your app is going to move from development to production status. Okay? And we're going to go through the process in a little bit. Then once you create this app, you're going to get to the app console. In the app console, you have a page for this app, and you're going to see where to configure permissions right here. You're going to see the branding piece, which is part of submitting an app for production. And you can see some analytics based on your app as well. This is also where you're going to generate a test token. When you're building your app and you want to just issue calls to a particular Dropbox API, Dropbox account, which is yours, you can generate a test token, which will allow this app to connect to your own developer account. Once this app will be used by other people, then you're going to have to implement the appropriate authorization flow, which we're going to talk in a minute. But this is a way for you to get, this is where you're going to get the test token. And we're going to see that happening in a bit. So why this is important? Because permissions and scopes is a big thing for every developer today, right? It's important to have security first in your mind. And this is how Dropbox apps are handle security, right? The first thing you need to define when you create your app is what kind of access it's going to need to the Dropbox accounts it's going to be linked to. Let's say you want to create an app that helps people with their resumes, and people could connect their Dropbox accounts, and this app would read the resumes from the Dropbox account and would make suggestions based on what it finds there. So this probably mean that you're going to need access to the full Dropbox of the user that connects the app, because their resumes might be in a folder that each person has a different folder where they keep them. Now, if your app is self-contained, it just uses Dropbox for the app itself. It just stores documents there and just reads documents from a folder that's not part of the rest of the content of the user. Then you can select app folder. So your app is going to automatically create a folder in the Dropbox account of the user that links the app, and the app will only have access to what that folder has. So just a way for you to be safer on how to connect to Dropbox accounts. And the next thing, after you define that, you're going to go to the permission settings, which is this tab over here. The permission settings then allow you to select which scopes your app is going to have access to. And why this is important, because whenever a user chooses to link your app with their Dropbox account, they will be able to review what kind of permissions your app is asking to and decide whether to allow this app to connect or not, right? If you look at the screenshot here on the left, this is like the message that a user will receive when they try to link your app with their Dropbox account. And you can put your logo in here in the branding section. This one doesn't have it, but you could put your logo to get your user more comfortable about allowing this app to connect. And then you describe, because you define the scopes here, the message that they will get will describe exactly what that app will be able to do. So in this case, is added content of your Dropbox files and folders, view and manage your file requests, view basic information about the account. Right? In this way, the user can choose whether to allow or not. And all that magic happens because of OAuth 2. I wanted to get a feeling of if you have already used OAuth 2 in your applications to see. Looks like we have almost a tie. Leaning a little bit to yes. Cool. So we're looking at a tie, right? So for those who have not used OAuth 2 before, it's a very neat way for you to authorize apps to use to link to other accounts without having to send secrets across the wire, right? It is a framework that is being used for by several SaaS applications these days, and Dropbox is one of them. And with this framework, it allows the users to be able to select which kind of to be able to accept whether the app was going to be able to do what it's trying to do. And it's also so you don't have to store secrets if you don't want to. You have all the flexibility, but for that to happen, we had to evolve also to a system that was very detailed in terms of scopes that this app is going to ask permission for. Then, so we have a guide for that. It's the DBX OAuth guide. You can, and we're going to send you the links at the end of this presentation for you. And super easy to read, super easy to follow, and how to use OAuth with Dropbox. Bottom line is that Every time an app needs to connect to an app, the user will go through what we call the OAuth flow. The OAuth flow is then that sequence of questions and answer. Hey, here I am app X. I'm trying to connect to your Dropbox, and I'm going to try to do Y, Z, and K. Do you allow me to do that? Yes or no? Then once they do, then the token is sent back to the app that can now access your account. So this is what we call the OAuth flow. And these tokens are usually are actually short-lived, meaning that if you have the token, they're not going to live forever. The user will have to, the app automatically refreshes tokens when the user connects it again. Let's see how to create an app then. So I'm going back to my developer console here. Again, I start with Dropbox.com/developers. And there's a button here on the right-hand side on that landing page called App Console. When I click on it, then I go to my personal app console. I have one app created here. I'm going to create a new one so we can use for this webinar. When I click on create an app, I'm registering the app, right? I will choose an API. And it is a button here because we used to have other types of legacy, but now we don't. Now I am a new user. I only have the scoped access, which is new. And then I need to select what kind of access I need. I'm going to select full Dropbox for this, and I'm going to give it a name. It has to be a very unique name because it needs to be unique across the universe of Dropbox apps. So I'm going to do build for Dropbox unique name. Oh, I used the word Dropbox. I cannot do that. Let's do this. There are branding guidelines. I cannot name my app as if it were a Dropbox app, right? And this is the screen, the settings for the app. And the one thing that is, once I define which type of access I need to go through the scopes, which is in the permissions tab. So all the scopes available are here. You have scopes related to account info, to files and folders, collaboration, and you also have team scopes, team data, files, members, sessions, and all that. For this particular example, I'm going to be very frugal. I'm just going to select files, scopes here, files content write, files content read, and I'm going to submit the changes. What else do I have here? I have branding, where I can add logos to my app with those screens. When you request the app to be linked, when you go through the OAuth flow, you can show the logo of your company, right? Great. So I have this, and the one thing I'm going to do in order to use this is to generate a test token here. When I click on generate, it creates a short-lived token that I can then copy and use it in my app. So that is all that I need to do in order to create an app and register it to Dropbox. To demonstrate the use of this token, I'm going to bring up Postman, which is like I said, is an API development environment, which makes it super easy to test APIs. So this is, we are present in the Postman API network, like I said. So if you click on the new button here in Postman and find the API network and search for Dropbox, you will find us there. We have two APIs there, two collections. And the one I'm going to use today is called the Dropbox API reference. And I'm going to run it on Postman. There's a button that automatically downloads the collection imports over to my Postman environment. I'm going to close this window and see that now I have the list of all requests that can be done, all the endpoints for the Dropbox account, for the Dropbox API here. I'm going to choose the same one that I used before, the list folder, which is a very common one, right? The only thing I need to do in order to use this, this collection, and you can see that in the documentation, if you look at the documentation here of our collection, it has all the instructions here on how to connect to it and what to do with the token that you just generated, right? What I'm going to do is edit the settings and add that as a variable for the collection. This is, of course, a development test environment, right? This is not a production environment. So now my endpoint, I'm going to look at the list folder again. My endpoint will use that. I'm sorry, I need to close this one. We'll use those credentials in order to be executed. Great. So path not found. What happened? It means that my credential was accepted, but I got an error message from Dropbox. And that's why. Because in the body, I have a sample body here that was brought by the collection. It's the same sample that you can find in our API documentation. It is searching for a path that I don't have in my account. So all I need to do is get rid of that path and send the request again. And therefore, I will have the result as a JSON file as well. And I can grab those results from there and then issue other calls and all that. So see how it's very simple for you to start playing with the Dropbox API. There's very little effort. You just create an app as we described, grab the, set the appropriate permissions, grab the token. You can use the token in your own app, or you can use a tool like Postman to test out some endpoints, get the results, see how the API behaves in your particular Dropbox account or with your particular app, and then move on from there. Let me go back to the slides. So recapping. So in the beginning, we said that we wanted all of those things to happen, right? We wanted you to get an understanding of what tools are available, know where to go to get started, where to go to get help, how to try the Dropbox API, and maybe get some ideas on what to build, and know how to create an app with the appropriate settings. This is where looks like we have 10 minutes for questions and answers. I hope that these objectives were met, and I'm looking forward to see what you guys, what questions you have, what comments you have. Let's use the chat window for that.
Cool. Yeah, we've got a few questions here queued up, Marcel. So if folks have other questions, please feel free to send those over chat or the QA down at the bottom. I'll make sure they get answered. So the first one that we had is there some material such as videos for training for the API?
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of videos, and Taylor and Kyle know that, my teammates. We are hoping that this would be the first, the webinar that's being recorded today. I also have a live Twitch transmission that happened last week with Postman, where we did like a live hacking session on how to connect HelloSign, which has their own API, with Dropbox as well. But the plan is to create a more organized path with videos for you to learn the Dropbox API. That's definitely in our plans.
Next question we had was regarding OAuth. Do we support NetIQ integration?
don't know. Not acute.
I can speak to that one as well. So our OAuth implementation is according to the OAuth 2.0 spec. So any tools that have the ability to integrate with OAuth from other providers, like it's a relatively standard spec. So for NetIQ, I think they have something called Access Manager. So that's the tool that you would use to be able to integrate with it. Then we had another question here, which was assuming that a folder is programmatically created, is it possible to programmatically create an event hook so you know when the name of that folder has been changed by a user? And similarly, can you use that to hear about other events such as that folder and all of its contents being deleted?
Oh yeah. So this is the kind of operation that's super important for a team, right? And yes, we do have that capability. Not all events are capturable, so we need to take a look at which one of them and see what can. These two particular ones, I would have to look. I don't know if we can set like webhooks for that, for renaming folders. Not sure of that. We'd have to look. Maybe Taylor, I don't know that.
So the webhooks can be set up, and those, as in their current form, fire on all events. So it can get a bit noisy. So probably for something like that, I would look at the team log, which is available on the business endpoints, which gives you a much more thorough overview of all the events that are taking place. But that would be where you would find out about it a bit like that.
Okay, so yeah, so then there is an API endpoint for you to capture the events on the team log, and that means that everything that happens in your team you can filter, you can see what's, take an action about it. That's solutions like BetterCloud, for example, actually leverage those things, but it's you can implement your own.
So I've got another question here, which is, if I just want to upload and share files with people using the create shared link with settings endpoint, is it possible to get a long-lived API key if I'm just connecting with a single account? I don't need additional users and I don't need an auth flow.
Right. So the way we recommend this to happen is that there is a if you're not like constantly using it, if you're just leaving the app running forever, right, it will keep refreshing automatically. If you happen to have this app like stop working and then needs to re-authenticate, reconnect, then you have a way for you to refresh token. There's an endpoint for that. You can implement that flow if you want to refresh token every interval if you want to. So there is no reason for you to create an indefinite token. We used to have like what we call like eternal tokens, but now we don't anymore. We don't recommend this anymore. But there are super easy ways for you to refresh that token when necessary, so you don't have to have the same token forever.
There's also currently in the OAuth 2 settings for your app settings, there's a setting to toggle between short-lived and tokens that don't expire. We have another question that says, we need an application in HTTP to save files to different folders inside Dropbox. Yeah, so sorry, I'm not quite sure what the question there is. Let me jump to another one here real quick. Let's see. What's a good place to learn about like upcoming changes or recent changes or kind of announcements about the platform?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we recommend our blog. Is not only it is a great place for you to get the latest and greatest, but it's also super fun to read. There's a lot of good ideas that people are implementing. So we put there like changes that we've made to the API, cool things that people are building with it, technologies that we are looking into. So strongly recommend you you check our developer tech blog.
So someone mentioned that they need an application to save files to different folders inside Dropbox, and that is a use case that is possible using the files upload endpoint. You would just need, when you pass in the path to tell it where to save the file, you would just adjust the path depending on where you needed the file saved inside the Dropbox.
Great.
So another question here was regarding the pre-built components. Are those like JavaScript only, or can those be used in other places?
I believe they can be used in mobile apps as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So if you have a front end that's like, well, probably like if you have a front end, it's JavaScript, right? But you can use it in your web apps, and you can use it in mobile as well.
Cool. So there's I had one final question for you, Marcel, unless there's one more that trickles in. But in terms of changing the scopes, like adding and remove scopes, what's the impact of that on external users of your application?
Changing the scopes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, after the app is deployed and all that? Okay. Well, whenever they go through the OAuth flow, right, the app will request the permissions that it is currently set to. So that's, you can actually start by having a very minimal set of scopes, and then you can programmatically request more scopes if needed, right? So that's a recommended approach. Like, you can just request this, and then if you need more, you can then go through that discussion with the user of the app down the road. So it is okay. You can change scopes. They will just have to reauthorize the new scopes that you request.
Well, I think that's all we've got for questions.
That's all we got. Yeah. So I feel that we're gonna send a survey right after this, so asking for ideas for new webinars. But I feel that OAuth would be a good one. Just have like a session just on how to use OAuth with Dropbox, that according to the questions I'm getting. Maybe a session on how to get started with pre-built components, right? Just start and just do them together. What else from the questions? Also, yeah, I guess those are the two ones that stood out for me. Let me know if you in the chat if you have any other ideas as well. Hope this was valuable to you. We're going to send a few links. Taylor, do you have the links available?
I do. Or it's probably easier to send them out over email.
Okay. So
we can make sure we get
right. We just send them out over email. All the links to the pages that we refer to our Postman collection, if you can find it in the API network. Also some guides that we find useful for you to get started. And of course, we have our contacts there. If you want to reach out for specific questions that you didn't feel like asking in the group today, just make sure you send us, because we're looking forward to hear what you're gonna build with Dropbox. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon in the next webinar.